Hello, my PBC family and friends. Pastor Brian here with a quick bite, living the Word. So, thought I had this morning. I was actually out early this morning, moving around, had to run into town and stuff like this, and oh my goodness. Anyway, so just noticing my peninsula I got going on here, guys. This is awesome. Anyway, so aside from that point. My wife's singing "You're So Vain" to me. Nice. Okay. Anyway, but let's focus. Here we go. Focus. All right. So I was thinking as I was driving in, and I was thinking about everything that's going on in our world right now, and I was thinking about how many people are so upset about like the government's decisions on different things, and why do we have to do these things? Why do we have to do that? And so on and so forth, and how they consider it almost evil that a lot of these things are happening, for lack of better terms, and that the government's doing an evil plot, and so on and so forth, and we're just following lock, stock, and barrel with it, and just kind of falling right in line with it, and things like this, And I was thinking a lot about that, and the Lord brought to me Joseph and Joseph's life. And you know the story of Joseph. Joseph, born a young man, a bunch of brothers, to Jacob, and Joseph gets sold into slavery by his own brothers, and then gets moved over to Egypt, gets put into jail, all these things, and eventually gets, by God's grace, gets exalted to the place of the second in all the land, and the prime minister, the biggest of all, next to Pharaoh himself in all of Egypt. And so I was thinking about all this, and I was thinking about, if there was anybody who could say that the government was against him, right? As a matter of fact, his father, literally, when he was thinking he was going to lose, not that he lost Joseph and he lost Simeon, but when he thought he was going to lose Benjamin, again, said, all things are against me. And yet Jacob had a relatively good life, all things considered. But I say all that to say this. The government was against Joseph. Things that Potiphar's wife, the baker and the cupbearer, the butler, kind of forgetting about him. And so, so the point of the matter is that basically I was thinking about all that, and I was thinking, okay, Lord, but then we look at Joseph's life, and at the end of Joseph's life, he says probably one of the most profound statements, or towards the end of Joseph's life, which I think it was at the end of the stories anyway. He says one of the most profound statements to his brothers after his fathers passed away, and now his brothers are feared because what's going to happen is Joseph going to kill us? What's he going to do? He's going to finally take his vengeance on us, so on and so forth. And so he's looking around, and basically he can sit there and he can point fingers at, this is why this was bad. This is why this was wrong. We shouldn't have been doing this, and you guys were wrong in this way. And that's not what he does. What he does instead, if you turn to Genesis chapter 50, verse 19 and 20 in particular, but I want to read verse 20 first. I'm going to go back and read 19 to us. Verse 20 says, But as for you, ye thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring to pass, as it is this day, to save much people alive. So many times in our life, we have this problem. We run into difficulties, we run into hard times, and we have two choices. And if you look at Joseph's life was to what? Joseph's life was to always look at if I put it this way, the positive out of it, what was going to come from it, and what God was doing. Not always looking at the negative of it. Always woe is me, and now look, I'm locked up in prison, and now I'm this, and he didn't, woe is me all the time. He was always like, you know what, God's got a plan. God's doing something. I know God's going to do something. And why? Because Joseph says in verse 19, he says, and Joseph said unto them, fear not, for am I in the place of God? In other words, Joseph recognized God is in control of my life. I'm not in control of my life. God is in control of the land. I'm not in control of the land. The Pharaoh's not in control of the land. You're not in control of the land. God is in control. And fear not, because I am not in the place of God. I'm not going to try to be God. Now, I think about that, and then I put this in light with another verse that we're all very familiar with, from Romans chapter 8, verse 28. When it actually says to us, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. Now think about that for a second. So, if God is in control, we're not in the place of God, the government's not in the place of God, God is in control, then why are we afraid? Why are we so upset? Because what they even made, let's just assume that what the government's choosing to give us these protocols and these dissing and don't do this and don't do that kind of things, let's just assume that is for evil. But God means it for good. Because we know that God does all things. Now I know we don't like that, right? That word all there. We want to say God does some things. God does the things that I like. God, the things that I agree with, God is doing for my good. No, that's not what it says. It says all things God does for the good of them who are called according to his purpose. Brothers and sisters, we need not fear. All these things we're going through are for our good. But we can either focus on the things we've quote unquote lost, or we can focus on the things we've gained during this time. And recognize that with loss comes gain. God gives all the time. He takes away. God giveth and he taketh, right? Isn't that kind of what Job even said, right? God gives and he takes. But the point of the matter is God's not going to take if he's not going to give back something better. And so we need to be willing to look at those things and go, God, you are in control, and I know you have taken something so you can give something more. And I know that this is working for my good. So this is my thought for us today, guys. I hope this encourages you. I know it challenged me this morning to think that way and not sit there and think about all the difficulties that we're facing, but rather rejoice in the goodness of the time. I love you. We love you. God loves you. And God's got this.